The Badlands, what are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots, their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday and kind of Saturday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. We got a special guest, Chris Paul.
I don't think we're on Rumble right now, John. Just making sure.
Okay, hold on. Oh, that whole thing didn't go to Rumble.
Before we get... Yeah.
Because of Rumble Studio.
Oh, gosh. We're having a good time.
I think we should be over there now, or at least we're live to studio. That was my bad, guys. Sorry the entire intro video didn't play because I forgot to hit the live button through Rumble Studio. But we should be good over there now. So for those of you complaining that our intro video is too long, this is what you get.
We're good. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good to go now.
Yeah, so we're all set. Okay, cool. Well, welcome everybody to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. Special guest with the Saturday co-host Chris Paul joining. How you doing, boys?
Another day in paradise.
I mean,
I didn't realize Burning Bright was drinking while you asked that question. I was being polite and allowing the regular Wednesday guy to
Normally, I would be drinking something Irish, but Daddy Daycare Day 2 was today, and so, you know, there's tired, and then there's whatever is currently happening to me. So we'll just see how all of this goes.
But otherwise, great. Just let his wife stay home all the time and not make her go to work.
I know.
Just saying.
Oh, great. Gonna hit me with a dagger.
I know she's in the chat, so I just want to make sure she heard that.
She has our health insurance. That's the thing.
Yeah, Badlands doesn't offer health insurance
Although
yet.
we don't go to the doctor anymore, so.
Yeah, now that you've had the kid, they never get sick. Yeah. You're good.
Yeah.
Anyway, plenty to talk about, and with Chris here, I know he doesn't want to stay on the entire show. We'll take him as long as he'll grace us with his presence, but we're going to get right into it after I get to our sponsors, because we're going to talk about this Trump election integrity executive order that came out, and Chris has some comments for some people, and we all do.
Just make sure they're responsible ones, Chris.
Oh yeah, I know. I wasn't responsible at all last year.
Yeah, we just have to be really careful not to call out Scott Pressler because people get real offended whenever we do that.
And we don't want to push, Trump's rhetoric like he's
careful,
a bit of an extremist. We don't want to align too closely with the exact things Trump is saying.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get to our sponsor. We got Field of Greens Lean. Are you a yo-yo dieter? You diet, lose weight, but gain it all back, plus a few extra pounds, then later you lose it again, regain again, on and on. It's dangerous, and studies show that it can increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other health problems. Breaking free of your yo-yo diet pattern is a main reason doctors created Lean. Lean is a supplement, not an injection, and you don't need a prescription. The science behind Lean is impressive. Its studied natural ingredients target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. It helps maintain healthy blood sugar, helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting fat into energy. So listen, if you're tired of losing the weight and getting it all back, tired of the yo-yo dieting, you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace, Lean was created just for you. We can get you started with 20% off when you enter John20 at takelean.com. That's JON20 at takelean.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting Badlands, and thank you to those watching for supporting our sponsors.
And Micro Toolmaker out of the rip, hitting us with $217 rants, one of them in honor of Chris. So we should have Chris on every time.
We'll bring him in when he wants.
All right.
It was a struggle to even get him here, if I'm being completely honest.
Well, I just did like a 3-hour and 15-minute show that ended after an hour and a half ago. So
I feel like those podcasts used to be like a little over an hour. You're turning into
but I reduced the number and increased the length.
Oh, I see.
Oh, I should have said it. Now I'm too late.
Increase the growth of the podcast.
Missed my "that's what she said" opportunity, but there'll be plenty in this episode, I'm sure. So, okay, let's get right to it. Trump finally did what we've been wanting him to do this entire time. We said this way back when the election happened, and we got the surprising victory. I think many people expected it to be a rug, but our concern was, and Chris, you were the driving force behind this talking point, was if they do allow Trump to win, first of all, they're going to steal a bunch down ballot, but him winning does not mean our elections are no longer fraudulent. Mm-hmm. And we've been wanting to see some action. Trump has repeated the sentiment that, our elections are fake. And we have a bunch of clips on that. Chris, I don't know if you want to play those now. It looks like you have it ready.
An executive order for your attention on the very important subject of election integrity.
Yeah. Well, let's. Yeah. I was going to say we can skip up to just Trump's comments, but let's listen to him This way, people
Gives
who
a
aren't
summary.
familiar with the EO can hear it. Yeah. Sorry.
And we will be going in, me and Bernie Bright, to like the specifics of the executive order a little bit later, because there's a couple interesting points. We probably will do that when you're not on air, Chris.
Cool.
But so just hold for process on that. We're going to talk about some other things first.
This executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but the compliance with National Election Day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud, you've heard the term. We'll end it, hopefully. At least we'll go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other.
That is like straight out of your Truth Social, Chris.
Incredible.
To sign this one. To sign all of them, but to sign this
Chris,
one
you got
is
the
a
floor,
great
man.
honor.
Well, I mean, it's critical that people understand that our elections are fake. Okay. The people running in the elections know that the results are decided beyond whatever the voters do. The people operating the election system understand that the system is rigged to achieve certain results. And the voters voting in the elections also know that the elections are rigged. So everyone involved in the system knows that the elections are rigged. And we can also be mature about these things and understand that world leaders are not chosen through fake elections. So what are we doing? We are participating in our own hoodwinking. It is a psyop that we involve ourselves in and then make real. And the purpose of the psyop is to convince us that everything the government does was our choosing. And we have to just like come to terms with that. And, you know, I fought this battle throughout 2024. I talked about it on my show all the time. I did a long episode, January 18th of 2024. It's called Lose the Training Wheels. It was the first episode back after our GART in Irvine. And I remember presenting some of those ideas at GART in Irvine to gasps and groans, not only from like the audience, but from other people in Badlands, because
we lost people in Badlands because of
that. People were worried that that me being honest about elections, saying something that everybody knows to be true, would make it so that people wouldn't vote in the fake election, and then we would lose a fake election, which doesn't make any sense. And and so, you know, the whole thing was that too big to rig means narratively too big to rig. There's no way that the country would have accepted an election as real and legitimate if Joe Biden was named as the winner, or later on if Kamala Harris was named as the winner. People would not have believed that. So the system would have blown up immediately in their faces. As soon as you understand that, and you know that the elections are fake and that you know that it's a narrative operation, you should immediately understand that the regime's priority is maintaining control over the system in full, which means that they have to tell the public that Trump won. Okay? At that point, then you can see what else they would do. Steal all the races down ballot in the Congress, in the Senate, at the state level, at the local level, all the way down to your school boards and city councils.
6 special elections in a row now have all gone to the Democrat. Like they won the 6th one today, even though we have this huge mandate.
Sure.
6 in a row. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. And there was a Jacksonville mayoral race like a year and a half ago where a Democrat won in the free state of Florida, where with America's governor attracting all these Republicans around to give them new voter registrations. Elections are fake. And, as soon as the point was, fill up the uniparty down ballot, House, Senate, everywhere in the government besides the president, we're going to give them that one. That's going to shut them up. And then they just go through subversion and lawfare and delay tactics, ride out 4 years, keep the election system in place, keep everybody hoodwinking each other, and they can just go right back along with their system. That's the plan. We can see the plan playing out now. Now, people told me it was still important for everyone to go out there and vote because we needed a record in case things get, really investigated and we get a final real number, and then we need to vote on the record for that. And there are some practical-based, pragmatic arguments, let's say, that would suggest maybe that's a smart thing to do. But no matter what, even if we're going to do that and go vote, and this was my case throughout the last year while I was accused of convincing people not to vote, which I never said. No. Even if there were pragmatic reasons, we could still say, we know these elections are fake. We're going to encourage everybody to go vote for XYZ reasons because we believe those reasons to be valid. But otherwise, it was a narrative op, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty incredible. When you say it's a narrative op too, we were saying that the whole time. It wasn't like, reverse engineering the outcome and reverse engineering now that Trump has called the election fake or the election system fake. Now we're looking for, well, why would he have still talked about having the mandate and needing a mandate in the vote? We were saying that at the time because we were getting challenged with that all the time, especially Chris was. People going like, well, then why is Trump saying this? Why is, why are they going to give Trump the win, etc.? And as you said, it's because it was narratively too big to rig. We were saying that beforehand, not after the fact. And I'd like to think, this is just like a vibe check or, sort of thing, but how Trump delivered those remarks, especially how he started off, man, he just looks around the room, like raises his chin and says, election fraud. Remember that? Do you know what that means to the room? And with everything you just said, Chris, it kind of reframes to me that tone and that delivery of sort of, this is where there's lots of argument in this community about plans, and does the stuff that we talk about on this show undermine Patriot plans? Are you saying there's no plan? And I would suggest that you can take everything Chris just said at face value, and that the election system is fake, and that there is still a Patriot plan, and that a lot of what Trump is doing there is maybe suggesting to the people who are trying to do the hoodwinking that you're talking about that's not going to work, right? Like, he understands, contrary to Con Inc. and all these people on our side that have been pressuring us to not talk about election fraud, they maybe thought it wasn't going to come back up again. That's the demeanor or the tone I took out of Trump, where he's like, bet you didn't think this was coming back up again, but it is, because we actually need to address it.
Yeah, and let's play out 2 quick scenarios. One of them being the scenario you just mentioned, which is if Donald Trump is announced the winner, it is nearly impossible for him to make the case to the American people that the elections are stolen without threatening his own legitimacy.
Right.
Well, Donald Trump has a clear public mandate, and no one in the country really doubts that at this point. And there's a bunch of indirect evidence that we can point to and that we've discussed before. The other thing is, if Trump didn't say that everyone needs to go out and vote, then they could announce that Biden or Kamala won and say that it was because Trump told people not to go out and vote. So what Trump says is what Trump needs to say. Trump is meant to be the tribune and the servant of the American people. And I think he's faithful in that role, which means that the American people need to demand the things that Trump will then go and implement and do. And if we're just like, yeah, we're cool with fake elections as long as the TV says that our team won, we're going to be here forever.
But what you said there is another great example of Rich Higgins' memo and the battle space. Just like the COVID vaccine, he told people to get the COVID vaccine because he had to. It was the battle space the media presented to him. Same thing with elections. And we're seeing the same behavior that you just mentioned as well with Scott Pressler, because he's like criticizing people right now on social media and blaming people that they didn't show up to vote in the special election in Pennsylvania. And I think it was MJ Truth, and maybe we'll get into this later, unless you want to talk about this, Chris. But MJ Truth got a DM from Scott Pressler because he was questioning elections. And he's like, no, you can't do that. You can't talk about election fraud. That's misinformation. His talking points are the same talking points from CISA, and the entire mainstream media and the left talking about election fraud is election fraud. Like it's crazy.
His job is one of the things that the left establishment and organizations like Rock the Vote, all these organizations with public-private partnerships with the states that actually have access to voter registries, he's doing the same thing. Voter registries are the raw materials of the election rigging system, and his entire being is set up to increase the amount of raw materials being fed into the system. It's bonkers. And yeah, you're right. Like to claim without any evidence whatsoever that our election systems are legitimate and he knows the reason why a fake election was lost is absurd. And fine, he's maybe right that no one has direct evidence right now to claim that fraudulent votes affected that election, but the system itself cannot produce a legitimate election. It is incapable of producing legitimacy, and there's no self-respecting American patriot who should ever convince anyone to turn their power over to these politicians on the basis of these elections. It's pathetic. And I wish people would stop defending all the people who just devote themselves to defending a system that is obviously set up for fraud.
This executive order itself, like, what does this executive order mean? If our election system was legitimate the way it is, Trump would not have issued it. But you go through here and it touches on every single aspect, from voter registration to voting multiple times to the funding of elections to the machines. That part's very interesting.
The verification.
There's all sorts of aspects in here encompassing the entire election system. He wouldn't have done it if there wasn't an issue, but there clearly is. He has repeatedly said that our elections were fake, and then the mainstream media like Brett Baier will rush him off like, no, don't say that. Don't say that.
I have that clip for you, by the way, if you want to see it.
Yeah, let's play that.
I did want to just hit on the Pressler point. Sorry, before you guys go to the Baier thing, because in addition to what you just laid out, Chris, about the Pressler op and things like it, he's not the only one, right? He's just the most notorious. We just talked about the narrative battle space, right? In addition to literally actually participating in the election system, the real subversive threat in my mind to what people like Scott Pressler do is by engendering that sort of participation in a fraudulent system, they are de facto strengthening the narrative of that system, right? It's not just that it's like he's feeding this data and he's feeding these fake votes, whatever. It's that every single person directly that gets like roped into that op, or that observes it on social media with tens of millions of impressions throughout the year getting boosted, probably not paid boosted, right? That is all part of lending mandate to the election system and whatever result the election system. So I know you're kind of saying that, but in terms of just, it also helps the narrative of the election system, which is, you know, if, as John just mentioned, with some of the behavior that he's doing with these DMs and stuff, it really makes you wonder, like, what is the incentive behind defending the system? It's not like he's defending a candidate or the result or something like that. He's defending the way elections are decided, and that's the problem.
Well, he also supposedly got paid $5 million from Turning Point USA to run his operation. So,
and basically turned on Trump. And then while he did that, he turned to DeSantis, I'm pretty sure, for a stretch after he got paid.
He was a dissent.
And then, the whole thing is crazy. And the funniest thing about it all is Ghost was doing a little research into his numbers that he's claiming. He's not even that good at what he does. He's just good at social media and pretending that he's like, but clearly he can't motivate or register enough voters to win a special election in Pennsylvania. He might just not actually be good at what he does. Honestly, if he came up to me on the street to try to register for me, I'd probably call the fucking police.
Also, let's think about the schedule of these elections. You know, we had an election in November. Now we have another one next week. There's another one a couple weeks after that. There's a Wisconsin Supreme Court election. Then we have the off-year gubernatorial elections this fall. Then we have the primaries for the 2026 midterms. Then we have the 2026 midterms. And so it's like every few months you have this big forced systematic reminder that we need to commit to voting as hard as possible, because if the uniparty member with the R next to his name doesn't get into the position that is probably illegitimate and shouldn't exist constitutionally in the first place, then the whole country's lost.
Okay, let's play this clip.
Yeah.
There's always been something that Americans rally around to come together. They really do. You won the popular vote. You won all the swing states. But still, Kamala Harris got 75 million votes in the country.
Well, if you believe the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay.
The
Let's just say
it is ridiculous
that the election was as it was.
Excuse me. There are 7 swing states. I won them all.
You did
by a lot.
But let me just get to the dismount here.
And I won the popular.
Have you thought about how to try to bring the country together?
It says right there. I want to play this clip from Patriots in Control quick too.
Oh, did you grab it?
Yeah, I got it.
Nice. Okay.
I think it's this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
Right. The law firms are being gone after very much, and they virtually admit they cheated.
Is this the guy that replaces Dan Bongino?
Yep.
Why? Okay.
You know, we have them in a very strong position, but there's been a lot of cheating going on.
One of the law firms
people have never seen anything like it, and we have to stop it.
One of the law firms that you've been going after, Perkins Coie, which was responsible for contracting a guy called Christopher Steele to draw up a huge document of lies about you that led to all sorts of Trump-Russia collusion allegations for years. You announced yesterday that you also are declassifying all of the documents from the Trump-Russia collusion hoax from what they call Crossfire Hurricane in the FBI.
Right.
What do you think people are going to learn from those documents?
I think they're going to learn how corrupt the election was. It was a very corrupt election. That was, you're talking about the second election, I assume. That was an election that I won. I won by a lot. And you're going to find that out. The documents are there.
Are we sure this is Trump? It does not sound like
It does
him.
not sound like
him,
it. Sounds messed up, but
Yeah. He's whatever.
Numbers are there. We won that by a lot. We won 3 elections, and we did very well in the second one. Now, the third one, we blew it away. The third one, we said too big to rig, and it was too big to rig. But that second election, you know, was the COVID nightmare, and a lot of that had to play. But that was a rigged election, totally rigged.
It didn't sound like him, but it was weird. He got asked about the Crossfire Hurricane documents, and then he's like, "Oh, I assume you're talking about the 2020 election, right?" He just completely segued and didn't answer the Crossfire Hurricane question at all.
Yeah, I mean, all this is just so, especially that deployment and the clip that we started with, the specific language that Trump uses is, as we said at the lead-in, could have been word for word the Chris Paul rant from January in Irvine, and especially the quote that I love in that is, "Some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won," and it's like, stripping everything else away, if there was one thing that this stance was attacked about, the Chris sort of stance and stuff we were talking about all year, it's that. It's that aspect of things. Like, what was the counter argument against this first principles logos? It was, you're affecting unity, take the win, right? Before it was, you're affecting unity, you're not going to get the vote out. After the fact, very infamously on Badlands, it was take the win, also shut your mouth and move on. You know, like, it's okay when we do it, that sort of thing. And if, like, just, if you word for word took Trump's quote, it appears in those episodes of the Power Hour coming out of various hosts. So that's just, it's great, right? I mean, I'm looking forward to the unity crowd and the take the win crowd bashing Trump for now casting doubt on the 2024 election, because they're all going to do that, right?
Surprised.
Let me make one more point and then I'll get out of here and leave it to you guys. I said yesterday that this election integrity executive order is good and important, and that Donald Trump can do everything in his power as president perfectly. So none of this is any slight to Trump, but still not fix elections, because elections need to be fixed at the state and local levels. And it's funny because so much of the blowback that I received last year, it wasn't about leftists because they don't see any of my material. Okay. It was MAGA supporters, truth community, Con Inc. people, Q supporters, the rest of it, that I was going to make it so that we would lose a fake election. Nothing can stop what is coming unless we tell the truth about elections before the election. Even though after the election, then we still have to prove to everybody that the elections are rigged and stolen, which is a lot harder to do if we've lied to them for a year to get them to do what we want them to do. And what we want them to do, by the way, is do whatever gives our side political power, which makes us exactly the same as them. People didn't care about telling the truth. And, you know, General Michael Flynn, of all people, says local action, national impact. Elections need to be fixed at the local level, and instead, everything is constantly focused on groveling and cheerleading over the headlines of the day in mainstream media outlets about what's happening in national politics. And I don't know what could be a bigger swing and a miss than that entire stance. And, you know, the fact that people continued promoting that viewpoint and then continuing to marginalize the actual principled, factually correct viewpoint, and did it for attention farming and social media credit, should prove, should say a lot. And sooner or later, people are going to have to keep these public communicators accountable for this stuff. Everybody from the mainstream Con Inc. podcasters to influencers on all of the quote unquote conservative sites. Because at the end of the day, these people still want their solutions from the government. That makes them statists. That makes them collectivists. These people are leftists. They have not awoken because they just happened to be on the right side the entire time. And man, it's about time that people actually reckon with what this is. And by the way, one last thing, man, you, John, used to get messages last year to try to silence me from truthers.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
All the time. Which I would never do to anybody on this network. One thing you said there, I talked about this a little bit on my show earlier today, but it was more so having to do with the signal situation. But I think what you're talking about, it kind of fits with that, with the signal situation, and we're going to get into the details of that later. But you have a bunch of people on our side, the same people you're talking about having to do with our elections, who are kind of defending the behavior. Like, well, it wasn't as bad as what they did with Benghazi. It wasn't as bad as what they did, like this whataboutism. And my thought about this is, like, we need to do better. If we're going to be better as a country, we can't stop like comparing ourselves to the other side. It's not about politics. It's about espousing the America First principles that you believe in at every situation at face value. So what the signal situation did, it was bad. Like, you can call that for what it is. It's just as bad as, or maybe not as bad as the stuff before it, but it's still bad. And for giving away the sins of like our side because the other sins were bigger, or the other sins were committed by people that we don't agree with, that's not a win. That's that's perpetuating the system of failure that we're never going to get out of. You know what I mean? But it fits right in line with what you were just saying.
Well, to that point too, John, we're seeing in recent days even some influencers openly on their feeds asking each other for advice on which arguments to forward to more effectively stay in line with the messaging that they are starting to lose touch with, because the messaging, to both of your points, is inconsistent because it's not relying on any sort of first principles, consistent, foundational baseline foundation. They don't have a foundation, so now they're open sourcing what they think the most unity winning message is going to be. And guys, I would just tell you as like an open PSA, if you're trying to influence, don't ask each other what you're supposed to say in front of all your followers that you're trying to hoodwink. It's a lot harder to do that than to just say the stuff that you think is true when you think it.
By the way, if you're looking to, if you're not sure what to say and you're trying to be an influencer, which is super stupid in the first place, but there's this sweet little app that they have. I just got to get this pulled up. This app they have that they will actually pay you and tell you what to influence. It's called Influenceable. The face of their entire brand is DC Drano, by the way. You can see him on this picture, which they conveniently now took off the website. But I still can't believe that op went down, and they're doing it with the Signal stuff too. But anyway, Chris, any closing thoughts? And you can.
Turning Point USA has an influencer application as well. You can become an official Turning Point USA influencer and disseminate their sponsored messaging on a day-to-day basis as well. And, you know, the purpose, as we discussed Saturday night, is to create the illusion of consensus. And, you know, all you got to do is tell the truth, and stick to first principles, and analyze things from there. And I think we're good to go. But yeah, awesome. I don't know. Thanks for having me, boys.
Thanks for joining, man. We'll see you Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Catch you later. Oh, glad he's out of here now. Now we can have some fun.
Yeah, well, we're never letting him back on. I mean, irresponsible messaging. We're anti-Trump now, too, because that was irresponsible messaging coming out of Trump.
I should have listened to the people who wanted me to silence him.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, there's so much. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to give a shout out to Rumble. They have us featured on the homepage again tonight. We got almost 15,000 watching, over 15,000 watching right now on Rumble. So thank you, Rumble. And for those who are new to this show, this network, make sure you give us a follow over here. We're getting close to that 200K mark. I want to get there. Yeah.
I wanted to hit on something else Chris said there that I think is important. You know, one of his asides, he mentioned the "nothing can stop what's coming" refrain. We've talked about this a lot, even on recent shows, that I'm a Q guy. I've said this at GART, etc. That comes from the Q drops, obviously.
And I'm not. Still am not.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, you've written about it. When you say you're not, people think you're anti, right? And
I haven't read the drops.
Yeah, right. The thing I like about what he said, though, about that, nothing can stop what's coming unless we tell people not to vote in a fake election, right? So this is where I think people need to stay in their lane and understand what you're arguing when you're arguing it. If you think nothing can stop what's coming, and I am one of those people, telling the truth is definitely not a threat to quote unquote the plan. If you think there's a plan,
nothing would stop. Like, by definition, doesn't matter what we do.
Exactly. But especially and almost twofold, especially telling the truth about what's going on would probably not stop what's coming, right? To your point. But additionally, if it could threaten what's coming, then twofold, it means something could stop what's coming, as you just said. And secondly, it means that what's coming is immoral and is not the thing we want, right? If telling the truth could stop what's coming, then we definitely don't want what's coming. And you would probably cue the "we're the baddies" meme in that case. Now, I don't think that's the case. I think that as Donald Trump, the reason we loved what Trump said there is not just because it's about the election system stuff that Chris and that we've been talking about for a long time. It's that it's another signifier that when Trump has the battle space, you know, when he's in a good position in the battle space, he always gives you the signal. He tells the truth. He forwards first principles arguments. And it's just, it's kind of amazing watching mental gymnastics of people now pretending that they were advancing those arguments the whole time too. Oh, we just told you to participate in the fake election because we knew that Trump would say it was fake in 3 months. It's exhausting to play those kind of games. And I think while maybe it was very exhausting for Chris to be attacked, especially throughout 2024, I would say that it's probably more exhausting to be one of the people who constantly has to check what you think your opinion should be in order to keep you in good standing in the plan.
Yeah, that's what's stupid. I mean, I've never been one to like really give a shit about what anybody says. And it was like that from day one because it was for my own mental health, like going through and seeing what people were saying about the stuff you say, whatever, reading the comments. I had to stop after probably my first video because if you at any point give any mental time and space to those people, it will alter you. And Chris does a very good job. He actually engaged with. He loves it. He will give it back.
It doesn't affect him negatively.
Yeah, I just ignore it. And I think you can never be afraid to say what you believe to be true. It's the first principles approach. We do our best to espouse it. But let's get into the actual executive order a little bit.
Yeah.
We won't like get too in the weeds, but there's a couple very interesting things about this that I want to touch on. I would encourage you guys to go read this executive order for yourself. It's all encompassing. Goes through the fake elections, fraudulent elections, and all the different ways that they steal elections. This one is even deeper than back in 2017 when Trump issued that executive order to create the Federal Election Integrity Commission, chaired by Mike Pence. They tried to address the voter rolls and the multiple people voting and different states and all those things. They got stonewalled by local state legislators and AGs and some, Democratic law firms like Perkins Coie and whatnot, Mark Elias. And so they ended up shutting that down, disbanding it, gave all the data to DHS. But this goes even further than that. That was mainly about the registration stuff. This gets into the machines, the funding, everything. And that's the stuff I want to really touch on. Because the citizenship requirement, that's a no-brainer. If you're not a legal citizen of this country, you shouldn't be voting in this country. No-brainer. Yeah. Voter ID. There's some Doge mentioned in here. Doge and these agencies are going to actually compile all their different systems of data together, which I can't believe that hasn't happened already, but everything's so compartmentalized. Did I say that right? Compartmentalized? Yeah.
Yeah.
In our government that they're actually, maybe working together might be more efficient, save some money. That's great. But then here we go. The EAC, I thought they were going to get rid of this organization altogether, but apparently not. But this part right here, the Election Assistance Commission.
I want to zoom in maybe a little bit just so people can see on the stream. Yeah,
okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Or do you want me to go even further and I can?
Yeah.
No, I lost my spot.
Aggressive son of. Yeah, because you're all your little jokes. Now
hey, you're the one with all these requests. You're a little high maintenance tonight.
Way too close now.
How much caffeine do you have? You're animated and high maintenance tonight.
I'm high maintenance?
Yeah, people saw you rocking earlier, man. Did you watch Friday's Liberty Den?
I saw pieces of it. Why?
Did you see the part where Zach played the Bill Gates clip?
No.
Oh, it's so funny because Bill Gates is sitting there like in this chair and he's just like rocking back and forth. And then I pulled up a clip from one of our shows and you were doing the same thing. It was so funny. That was perfect. I'll send you the
Usually
clip.
It happens late in the show, but tonight it's happening early and then I'll anti-rock.
That's okay. Okay, anyway, the Election Assistance Commission shall initiate appropriate action to amend the voluntary voting system guidelines and issue other appropriate guidance establishing standards for voting systems to protect election integrity. The amended guidelines and other guidance shall provide that voting systems should not use a ballot in which a vote is contained within a barcode. I think this is huge because, especially in the blue states, you go in, you fill out who you're going to vote for. They give you a little barcode that you then take to a different machine because, 2 points of failure in elections, that's necessary. And then they scan the barcode. And at no point do you know if the barcode actually displays the people you voted for, whether you get it scanned the second time, whatever. Completely fraudulent process, rife with fraud, you might say. And they're taking that away here. So I think that's great. And then on top of that,
maybe it's a separate item, but in my elections in Massachusetts, my fake elections, the poll workers were proud of answering in the negative when people asked if they needed to present ID, because there were a lot of people that were excited to present ID and were proudly told, like, you don't have to do that here, right? Like, it was very obvious while they're handing them their barcoded envelopes that they wanted them to be really confident in knowing they didn't have to prove who they were.
You know, that reminds me of a story from Tattoo Teacher. I don't know if she's in our chat or not. She normally is. I expect her to be. If she's not, I'm gonna be real disappointed because I'm giving her a shout out right now. Wow. When we were at Garden Vegas, she was telling me a story about her daughter, lives in New York. I don't think she'd be described as a liberal. Again, I don't remember. I'm paraphrasing this, and it's gonna be totally butchered. So that's why I'm hoping she's in the chat to correct me. But my understanding of the story was she went in to vote and tried to present her ID to prove it was her voting, and they got mad at her and turned it away and no, we don't accept that here. And it completely blew her mind, and that's what red pilled her was being told to put her ID away. And I do not see
it's a microaggression, I think.
Oh yeah,
when you pull your ID out.
Oh, definitely, it's racist too. It's all sorts of things.
Yep.
Somebody's throwing emails in the chat. Shoot me an email at hoistus234@yahoo.com, and I'll give the first 4 a free sub to Chris Paul Substack. I don't get it. Normally we get rid of spam, so don't do that too much.
Subs to Substacks.
Oh, you can?
So he's trying to gift subs to Chris Paul's Substack.
Oh, then I encourage that.
It's a valuable thing. So if he's not some sort of scammer, you guys can jump all over that, but we can't be held responsible for if he's a psycho.
Anyway, well, let's keep going here because this is continued. Based on the new guidelines, every machine needs to be recertified. That's pretty awesome. CanCon pointed out, he texted me after my show today and he said, there hasn't been a single machine that's passed this certification in 2 years or something crazy anyway. So that's pretty wild.
Thank God Fox News helped them set all those legal precedents though, huh?
Hey, every single news agency that has been sued by Dominion has settled and paid out, and not a single one of them has fought it to expose this stuff. What does that tell you? Yep. If we ever get sued by Dominion, I'm not settling. We will fight it. Right. I'll fight it to my grave.
But we are not questioning Dominion on this show. It could be any machines that we're talking about.
Any and all.
Yep.
Prosecuting election crimes are making a push to make sure that they go after election crimes. No brainer. Should have been doing this in the first place. They list out all the different crimes. I want to get to the one. I think this is the one. Yeah, here we go. Improving security of voting systems. Is the words on the screen too big?
Yeah, I told you that earlier, and you told me about high maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that better.
This is hurting my eyes.
I mean, even this is kind of a little too big.
Oh, gosh, dude. I'm just trying to see if this is the right. Jeez. This is embarrassing.
This is perfect.
Okay, I just got to find the right spot.
Just right.
Okay. Improving security of voting systems. To improve the security of all voting equipment and systems used to cast ballots, tabulate votes, and report results, the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security shall take appropriate actions to the extent permitted by blah, 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 and all other applicable laws, so long as the Department of Homeland Security maintains the designation of election infrastructure as critical infrastructure. That's key, something we've talked about a lot. It was Jay Johnson in January of 2021, Obama's head of the Department of Homeland Security, who basically categorized or classified our election infrastructure as critical infrastructure, which brought it under the DHS and CISA and allowed them to basically have their way with our election system for 4 years. We have CrowdStrike running EDR services on our election. I mean, so many problems. CISA totally dropped the ball. But anyway, I thought it was notable they kept that part in here. But then this is even the biggie. To prevent all non-citizens from being involved in the administration of any federal election, including by accessing election equipment, ballots, or any other relevant materials used in the conduct of any federal election. Now, what that means to me is if there's a foreign entity, a foreign government, or a foreign person who just so happens to own an election machine company, this would prevent them from being involved in the administration of our elections. And when I hear that or think that, it takes me back to Trump's draft executive order from December 16 of 2020. It was never signed. It only came out because of the J6 investigation. But I'll read this just to remind you guys. Trump called this out. And if he's right about this information, which there's no reason not to believe he is, then they're getting rid of these machines just by this executive order if it's followed through on. I, Donald Trump, President of the United States, find the forensic report of the Antrim County Michigan voting machines released December 13th, blah, blah, blah. There's evidence of international and foreign interference in the November 3rd, 2020 election. Dominion voting machines and related companies are owned or heavily controlled and influenced by foreign agents, countries, and interests. That right there is wrapped up in this executive order, if I'm understanding this correctly. And it's totally possible I'm not understanding it correctly, but I like my interpretation
to
of it.
me like a threat to global democracy, if you ask me. And you know, it's one of my oldest refrains in the info war was, when they tell you such and such is a threat to global democracy, they're not lying at all. They're not even editorializing. They're telling you exactly what those words mean in sequence. It's just that people don't often think about what global democracy means in light of a national election. You know, it's like, it's one of these little mind tricks that you can train yourself to employ. People in the info war often do what we're doing right now, which is digging into the details, and that's what info warring is, right? That's how you get the most robust understanding of something you can. But there's a lot of little tricks you can do early on before you do the deep dive, that's going to hit you with some signal. Or lately, I think there's a lot of counter signal, not even referencing our next story, but when the enemy tells you what they fear, believe them, right? It's when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And again, when they say such and such is a threat to their democracy, they're not lying about it. And everybody's reaction in the truth community is usually to say, they're lying, this isn't a threat to democracy. Yes, it is. It's exactly a threat to the sort of borderless systems that this executive order is meant to put a stop to.
Yeah. To me, it's just it's attempting to remove every aspect of our fraudulent election system.
Yep.
It's the foreign entity part. That's something that we keyed in on so much over the past 3-4 years, because that right there is an act of war, right? And the importance of there being some form of act of war to what we think Trump did,
yeah,
you know, while Biden was in office, it's so important. But preventing all non-citizens from being involved in any aspect of the administration of our elections, it removes a majority of these election machines, whether it's the Dominions or I don't know, there's a whole list, InterCivic, ES&S, whatever. Then it goes even further. And this is where I think it could potentially get interesting, depending on how they interpret this and how far they take it. Because remember, Trump has repeatedly said how our elections were stolen. And there's a lot of reason to believe he has evidence of that. But here, the Secretary of Homeland Security will review and report on the security of all electronic systems used in the voter registration and voting process. They shall assess the security of all such systems to the extent they are connected to or integrated into the internet, and report on the risk of such systems being compromised through malicious software and unauthorized intrusions into the system. And this just makes me think of this article I wrote, the draft executive order one, and then also the CrowdStrike being involved in our elections, which that might even be in here. Yeah, the SolarWinds hack, and how that might be tied to our elections. I wonder, I'm gonna have to do this later. I wonder how many of these companies are foreign owned, foreign tied.
Right. I wanted to ask you about that too. We've probably talked about this over the last couple of years. With the devolution operation, you've often said that, you know, the president has such broad authority to define an act of war, right? And to do, especially this is why this is a lot of
interpret. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. He's vested with a lot of authority to do that, a lot of leeway. And, you know, we've kind of theorized that this is among many reasons why he very often compares himself to Lincoln in the Civil War and a lot of the moves that he made at the time. Whether you think those were good or not, I think Trump is not necessarily tying himself to Lincoln morally. He's tying himself to Lincoln in terms of the powers of the executive office. So with that said, in the context of the foreign interference angle, you know, we think a lot of the interference in like you didn't need, in other words, you don't need foreign interference in order to steal an election, given how fraudulent our election systems are, given the machines, etc. Right? We would agree on that. The whole first segment of the show with Chris, like the system itself is fraudulent. There are any number of ways to steal it.
Death by a thousand cuts.
Yeah. With that said, do you think that a big reason for Trump's focus on foreign interference is the narrative aspect of it? is that would give him, I don't know if you've talked about this, but I'm just thinking from a narrative angle, why the focus on foreign interference if he could also declare this an act of war and, implement devolution, whatever else he needs to do with domestic interference, right? To me, I would theorize that's a much easier pill to swallow and really easy from a disclosure perspective to say our nation was attacked, rather than him being seen as going after the political opposition in the United States, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Are you talking about his focus on saying that like basically throughout or with this executive order? Because I wouldn't say
specifically with this, but also throughout, the fact that he is focused on foreign interference, or that the language is focused on foreign interference. I've just wondered, I'm not saying he's not going to go after domestic interference or domestic traders or anything. I'm just wondering if, as this rollout seems to accelerate, is he leading with foreign interference because that's a really easy way to be like, hey, if we have proof of foreign interference, then that's act of war. Like normies even understand that would be an act of war.
Yeah, well, there's so many layers to that question, because I wouldn't say he's leading with the foreign interference stuff. I feel like he's been leading with the mail-in ballots and the voter registration and whatnot.
Yeah, that's true.
The foreign interference is definitely an aspect of it, and one that I would say is an important one to the wartime powers, but we don't know. We don't know what he did exactly, right? We're speculating. We also don't know what evidence he has and how much foreign interference there was. We don't know. There's so much that we don't know, and we're all just like, we'll say it like we know it to be true, but we really don't know. People say, oh yeah, Dominion stole the election. Have we seen actual evidence of it yet? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just, spade a spade.
Right.
What have we actually seen? What do we know? There's very little we actually know. So a lot of theorizing here. Mm-hmm. But this executive order, and I don't think this is the final straw. Like Chris said, this is a start, and it's going to be fought. They're gonna fight this too. But we actually have to see movement on it. But it's touching everything. It's from the registration to the foreign interference to the funding too, which is another key aspect of this.
Right. And
I don't know which one is the most prevalent, because we haven't seen the raw data behind any of it.
Well, like you said,
I mean, there's some, but CanCon's probably having an aneurysm in the chat right now because I'm not saying things right or something about elections. But you know what I mean? Like there hasn't been a big definitive, here's all the evidence, the PCAPs or whatever that Lindell had. We never saw any of that stuff. So I don't know.
We're also talking about evidence, and I know, why we vote on Friday nights. I'm sure there is, evidence is probably the wrong word. There is copious evidence, I think, of election fraud. I think what we're talking about is proof codified in a court of law, in the public narrative, with the public mandate, and that's what Trump seems to be leading to. I know.
Let me clarify that, because you can already see people pushing back. I'm not saying there's not evidence of fraud. There's plenty of evidence of fraud. I'm saying we don't know all the data that they have, because what we are allowed to see and witness in the public is, I bet, is barely scratching the surface of what is actually going on big picture. Like, I don't think we can actually comprehend how fraudulent our election system is. We know bits and pieces. That's what I'm saying. The evidence we have, which is a lot and enough, in my opinion, to have invalidated 2020, I think it's barely scratching the surface. That's what I mean by that. Plenty of evidence.
Yeah.
And watch Why We Vote. The show would be way better if CanCon wasn't on it, but Ash is there. She makes up for most of it.
Yeah, nobody here is arguing that our election system is legitimate. I mean, we spent
the whole basis of the network.
First half an hour. Yeah, exactly. It's literally the basis of your whole thing and the start of Badlands Media. But yeah, I'm more interested in what is this leading toward. I don't know if you want to pull up, if you have the clip handy again, of what Trump exactly says, but because I don't want to paraphrase him, but I thought after he signs the order, he does, I think, suggest that this is only the beginning. Like he definitely gives some leeway there to say, we're going to do a lot more. We're going to start, like, this is a start to fixing our election systems. So that's super encouraging. There were a lot of encouraging things coming out of it. Again, the biggest one to me was the fact that obviously he hasn't lost the signal. None of us thought he did lose the signal. But it's more so that he's saying, like, this is the beginning of a rollout. And it's certainly going to go longer. Yeah.
I think I got it here.
Are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud. You heard the term.
Was he looking at Caitlin Collins there too when he said that?
I don't know. Maybe.
Hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks.
Right there.
And we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election.
Yeah. Again, that's the same talking points you've been saying. So I see what you're saying.
He said there's other steps we'll be taking. Like this is the beginning.
Yeah. The thing is, like, constitutionally, the elections are up to our states. So whatever Trump does, best case scenario, he finds a way to expose how bad our system is, and the states are forced to do something about it. Like, it has to spark enough people getting upset and motivated that they demand change at the local level. The one thing I think they can do to spark that and almost force it in some ways is they're going to withhold funds from states who aren't falling in line with the executive order. Like, the EAC will not fund any of the election apparatus at the state level if they're not complying with this executive order. Other than that, I don't know. I kind of want to see what they have to go in the next couple of weeks. I want to see what Congress is going to do. I'm actually going to have Congressman, I can't remember his name now. Is it Cloud? Who did I text you guys about the other day?
I don't remember.
I think it's Cloud. It's Michael Cloud from Texas. I think he's going to be on next Tuesday, and I'm like just going to straight up ask him, like, President Trump is doing this. What are you guys doing? Because they're clearly the beneficiaries of the fraudulent system. That's the hardest part for any of these things to be implemented. Is we're living in this paradigm where the people that we are expecting to fix and change our election system are the beneficiaries of said fraudulent election system. And how do we expect them to want to change the thing that put them there in the first place? And it's just it's a contradiction. I don't know how we overcome that.
Well, that's why there has to be more coming, and he's saying that there's more coming. And again, it doesn't mean we sit around and just wait for it. We try to figure out what that's going to be. But he says there's a lot of steps we'll be taking. This, tangentially, it kind of makes me think of the executive order we went over last week. I think it was last week.
Which one was that?
He's talking all about the state and local level and continuity of government planning and all this kind of stuff, emergency response,
resilience, national resilience
strategies. But it's kind of interesting that he follows it up a week later with an executive order on election fraud. Given what you just said, that made me think of it again. That you said, it should be at the state level. And yes, CanCon, you're freaking out in chat constantly. He said wrong in all caps. Federal government has some power. Well, yes, we know that. Also, I think a lot of this stuff. This exactly, and this is what Chris says a lot in terms of people who like stop their arguments at the Constitution as well and don't go further and go, why don't we go back to the Convention of States idea, right? Like, there's a lot of it. What was the intention of the Constitution? Was the intention for the federal government to regulate its elections that elect itself? No, it wasn't. The intention was for a convention of states to cooperate on an election system to codify their people's mandate for the federal government. The federal government is supposed to be vested with the power of the states, not to regulate itself, right? So we're also talking about not the way things are, but the way that maybe things should be. That's a lot of what we try to talk about.
Along that note there, you're talking about going back to the original Constitution, maybe even before that.
Before that, yeah.
At this point, I am on board. Let's go back to monarchy. We'll name Trump the king, and he can just start us blank with everything that, let's right the ship with him as a king first. I trust him to do that.
It's a joke, but I'm not what would materially be the difference right now? Because people walk around, well, what about our constitutional rights? Which ones? The ones that got you fired from your jobs during COVID, the ones that prevented the government from stealing your tax money, the ones that stop you from filing tax returns in the first place. Like, what constitutional rights exactly are we talking about here? So,
the ones that won't let us stream to YouTube and get banned there 5 times in a row, 5th account or whatever.
Yeah, so I think that's why, whether you agree with going back to the Convention of States or not, I think we need to get off of this whole, the document, how the document said, the founders didn't even agree on that document. We clearly are in a position where that would be way better than what we've got going on right now. But what we have going on right now is clearly a fraudulent system that has been papered over that core document and that core vision for the country. So that core vision didn't work, and there needs to be ways to protect it.
Like back to my point, and this is something, you know, I struggle with this too. You know, I fully understand that the thing we were talking about earlier about the narrative battle space, the Rich Higgins memo, we're operating in the certain battle space that we have to. Like Trump is, we're playing within the confines of the system that we have while trying to fix the system that we have. And that's my question is, how do we fix a system when the people that are responsible for fixing it benefit from the system? And that's the part where I don't know what the solution is. And some people get mad. Somebody on Twitter yesterday, I took a screenshot of one of Chris's posts and posted it, and they're like, man, this is what I hate about Chris. He's all he does is complain and talk about these problems, but he never offers any solutions. Guys,
he constantly talks about solutions.
Well, that too, but also like just because somebody is pointing out a pretty fairly obvious problem, like they don't have to have the solution for it in that moment. And I don't know what the solution is here. People smarter than me probably have the solution worked out, Trump or whoever, and we're getting there. But until that is revealed and we know what that is, it's okay to talk about these problems and try to figure out what the best system forward is. And I really do think there's power in just vocalizing it. And that's what I think Chris's point is. Like, it's okay to vocalize what's wrong with our election system, or it's what you don't agree with generally in our country. And I can't wait to have McLeod. He's probably gonna be the first and last congressman I ever have on, because I don't plan on like being polite to him just because he's like, I'm gonna ask him hard questions.
Yeah.
But before we go any further, I do want to give a quick shout out in the chat to Phil Scarborough, guy who made the intro video, which none of you got to see tonight because I forgot to go live on Rumble. But he says, shout out to Mississippi Badlanders. Would love to connect and organize a meetup. phsjr@protonmail.com. So if you're in Mississippi and want to join a Badlander group, get in touch with Phil. He's organizing a meetup. And speaking of that, next, or is it next? April 5th, whenever April 5th is coming up, I'm going to be in Nashville, and I'm going to be attending the Badlander meetup down there. So if you're in the Nashville area and want to come hang out, we are going to be at the Cellar Bar. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the screenshot so I can show you guys. Here we go. The Cellar Bar from 2 to 4 p.m. I think we already got like 50 or 60 RSVPs. You have to RSVP because if we get too many, we're going to have to switch venues. So make sure you go to my Twitter or any of my socials. I guess it's on there. But eat more plants to thrive at protonmail.com. I don't even know who owns that email, but they're collecting RSVPs, and that's very important.
A man
would love
in
to
a
meet you.
trench coat will collect RSVPs at the corner of.
Oh, it's
5th
Rocket Savvy.
Okay.
I know that's not a real name, obviously. I can't.
That makes it all better.
There's two gals that I know. Like I know their names. I don't know which one is Rocket Savvy. So I'm looking forward to meeting her on April 5th. And looking
Ash
forward to
is
meeting the rest of you.
woman-splaining to me that elections are fake after we spent the first 45 minutes of the show talking emphatically about how elections are fake, and then she said she didn't watch the beginning of the show. I don't know how I think somehow, John, I think we're being accused of defending the election system. I'm not. It's hard for me to track when CanCon and Ash start like freaking out in chat. They almost became the same
CanCon,
person.
I don't know about
She's
CanCon.
being a little ashy tonight. She's being a little CanCon-y.
Ash is great. I don't know what you're talking about. But CanCon for
Keep her in
sure.
line. Ever since she
CanCon
got
for
that
sure.
show.
I think there's one more thing I want to talk about with this executive order quick, and then we'll probably get to the next topic. What time is it anyway? Oh, geez. Yeah, we have a long way to go, and it's already 10:40. This will be one of those all-nighters.
That's not what we said, Ash.
What did you say?
She said, you said we don't know if elections are fake. That's not what was said. See, John?
What's funny is CanCon trying to call us normies is
Yeah,
like...
I left that one alone.
It's almost pathetic.
I try to be nicer to him these days, and I left that one alone. I didn't even grab it, but you grabbed it.
Anyway, okay. So this one is pretty big as well. Preventing foreign interference and unlawful use of federal funds. They're going to make prioritize enforcement of laws to prevent foreign nationals from contributing and donating in United States elections. I'm curious to see if we ever get to the bottom of our tax dollars, which we're sending overseas to places like Ukraine, and then them partnering with, was it FTX? Is that the crypto one that got shut down?
One of them.
Yeah. And then, but there was a partnership there between Ukraine and FTX, and they were sending money right back to the United States in the form of Act Blue. There's WinRed, all of them. Every one of those things is fraudulent, in my opinion. Again, there probably is some actual people donating through those, but they use it as a mechanism to perpetuate their fraud and their funding and their money laundering. So they're going after that as well. There's just a lot of good things in this executive order. I'd encourage you to read it on your own time. I think it's well worth it. But while we're on, or go ahead.
I would just say that the last point on this executive order for me is that a lot of the sections, it almost feels to me like the beginnings of a battle plan, where a lot of the language I've been reading about the financial, the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, et cetera, is Trump basically decreeing like, hey, come up with a plan to do X. And then plans within plans within plans are formulated after that point. And that's kind of what this feels like. It's like, hey, here's all the various macros of the election fraud system. And there's going to be plans within each of those macros.
Yeah. I mean, it's typical executive order, right? Within the next 180 days, so-and-so will come up with a plan to address this. And so they're going to address it. We don't know how, though. We don't know how. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, I'm going to get to our second sponsor of today's show. We'll do one more later. We got River Bitcoin, which has been on the rise again lately, which is nice to see. River announces Bitcoin interest on cash. Now, US dollars in your River account will earn a high-yield interest rate that can be paid in Bitcoin. With the price of groceries, mortgage, and tuition on a steep rise, people are now looking at a retirement age of 80 instead of 60, and it's all because dollars are losing value at a record pace. The challenge is finding a way to hold on to your dollar while still getting ahead, and that's where River Bitcoin comes in. River Bitcoin's interest on cash protects your dollars with FDIC insurance while offering you the option to reap the potential gains of Bitcoin. Over the past 2 years, you would have earned 2x the rate of most high-yield savings accounts and 16x the rate of the national average savings account with Bitcoin interest on cash. Get you started at badlandsmedia.tv/river. Move your cash to River today and start earning a real interest rate with Bitcoin. That's badlandsmedia.tv/river. And speaking of Bitcoin, G-Money roped me in, and we are going to have a booth at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I might try to get there, man.
Okay, never mind. Canceled.
Hey, well, now it's a tax write-off.
No, I just...
Although I don't think
if you're
they'll
coming,
let
I
you
don't
in if you
want
pay
to
your
go.
taxes.
The official stance of Badlands Media, the official public stance, so we pay our taxes. We encourage everybody to pay their taxes.
Especially when we have write-offs at
Especially
events.
with write-offs. Yes. Right. But no, I will be down there. So that'll be a fun time. You should try to make it. It's only like a 2-day conference, isn't it?
Mrs. Wright's the one who told me to go.
She's trying to get you out of the house.
Yeah, what's going on there? But it felt like a trap. It was one of those things where I was like, what? Please, honey, go to the Bitcoin Maxi conference in Vegas. I'm
Go hang out with G-Money more for 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Ghost, how's your wife feel about all of your hanging with G-Money?
Oh, speaking of that, did you see
know?
we have the calendar now?
He's like, I haven't showed her anything from Gart.
Well, I'm going to mail her a calendar ASAP because they're live on the website. If you go to badlandsmedia.tv/ghost, you can get the official Ghost of Base Patrick Henry.
The cover is so great. Like just all the
Ghost of Wasted Patrick
feel the
Henry.
Energy.
Oh, it's so good, man. These memes were hilarious. For those who don't know the backstory here, because we do have like almost 22,000 watching, so obviously some new people. First of all, hit that thumbs up and follow us here. But we do conferences all over the country for a year usually, and it's a great way. The conference part, like the panels that we do, are kind of secondary. It's the community, right? Hanging out with friends and family, the people who watch, getting to know people. It's a great time. Some people have better times than others, and Ghost is one of those people.
Yes.
And he happened to. I wonder if I even have the actual picture pulled up. I don't. But anyway, Ghost, after one of the nights of karaoke, ended up falling asleep on the shoulder of some sweet old lady on the couch in the lobby, and it was turned into just a fantastic meme.
Did Christy make this?
Christy?
Kane Cut said she wants royalties, or did she take? Oh, did she take the picture?
Oh, she probably took the picture.
Wow, you gotta get on that, CanCon. Sue John.
Oh, it's too late.
You gotta be quick.
It's too late.
Oh yeah, you gotta sue Ghost.
It's too late.
I think Ghost owns the rights to himself. Although I think we all do now.
We all do. We all own portions of Ghost with the sales of this calendar. If you read the fine print of the contract I didn't make you sign when you joined Badland CanCon, I have like you can't sue me. I'm immune from lawsuits.
Just in general.
Just immune.
For
Nobody
anything.
can sue me. Yeah.
I can do literally anything ever. and you
cannot
can't
be
sue me.
sued. Funny.
Is that like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy? Is that similar legal standing?
That's pretty much.
I declare bankruptcy!
I mean a lot.
It's a funny show. Mrs. Bright is in the midst of her like 11-3 watch. She just started it.
11-3?
11th rewatch.
Oh, I think you said 11-3. But okay, yeah, I've watched it way more than that probably. I got an email the other day, and I like this guy. He's been giving me some good information, but he's like, you should stop doing the "that's what she said" jokes.
We did a few tonight.
I didn't do any tonight yet. You did?
Yeah, a bunch.
Are you
I
sure?
just slipped them in.
I didn't hear a single one.
I just set you up for one right
I'm
there.
not doing it right now because I'm telling you the story of this guy saying like you need to stop doing it.
Fuck that
and,
guy.
And I like this guy. No, I'm not gonna fuck him, but I like him. He's
All right.
respectable, and I'm just contemplating whether or not he's right. But I probably will continue to do that.
Man, you've changed in the last couple minutes here.
Dude, I that's what she said myself on every single one of my daily shows. So I'm not actually going to consider stopping doing it. You know how lame it is to be saying something and then that's what she said yourself?
I did it tonight because nobody was picking up the bait.
Yeah, whatever. Let's keep going here. Let's get into the next big executive action Trump did. And this one it's almost weird to me in a good way though. But they've changed this website and I do not like the change. You guys got to see this. They like made it more confusing. Like from the homepage, like where everything is. I feel like they made it more confusing. But anyway, we got a memorandum. The immediate declassification of materials related to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Crossfire hurricane investigation. And it's just so weird because it's exactly what he already did back on January 19th of 2021. Except as provided below, I've determined that all of the materials referenced in the presidential memorandum of January 19th, 2021 are no longer classified. Let me show you what he did on November 19th of 2021. For those who don't remember, the day before leaving office, right here. Declassification of certain materials related to the FBI's Crossfire hurricane investigation. So he's saying that all the materials referenced in this executive order or memorandum from back on January 19, 2021 are hereby declassified, which he also did in this memorandum. I requested the documents so that the declassification review could be done. Then he says in here,
Doesn't
anything
it
that
say
they
certain materials, does that matter?
But look at this. In here, the second paragraph, I determined that the materials in the binder should be declassified to the maximum extent possible in response and as part of the iterative process. Did I say that word right?
Yeah.
Iterative? I don't like that word. It's hard to say.
I don't like it either.
Stupid word. Process of the declassification review. Under a cover letter dated January 17, 2021, the Federal Bureau of Investigation noted its continuing objection to any further declassification of materials. Blah, blah, blah. I've determined to accept the redactions. Okay. So he says there's this whole binder of stuff. I want it all declassified, but then there's a certain subset of those that the FBI said we can't do that. You can do it with redactions though. And I've accepted those redactions. So everything else in the binder right here, I hereby declassify the remaining materials in the binder. Final determination, blah, blah, blah. Go back to this one. It's the same thing. I've determined that all the materials referenced in the binder are no longer classified. He already declassified them. And then I further determined that the material proposed for redaction remains classified. This doesn't change a thing. It's just redoing it. And it's so weird to me. But then the more I'm thinking about
it says all materials are referenced, not all materials. Period.
Yeah. So it literally does the same thing. That's what was so weird to me. But then I was thinking more on this, and I gotta find my post because do you remember the story? Did we do it on this show or was it on a Saturday? It might have been a Saturday show where we talked about the binder of classified information that CNN.
I think that was Saturday.
Okay. For those who don't recall, you know what? Maybe I should just find the actual article. Mystery of missing. Oh yeah, here we go. And it's such a weird story, but essentially a binder containing highly classified information related to the Russian election interference went missing at the end of Donald Trump's presidency, raising alarms among intelligence officials that some of the most closely guarded national security secrets from the U.S. and its allies could be exposed, sources familiar with the matter said. This binder went missing. They're trying to blame Trump and his administration officials. The whole time I thought this story was weird because why would they run this story unless it was almost like a cover story, right? Like they're covering for somebody here. What's the end game? We never got a resolution to this. But also, if you remember, there's speculation that the Mar-a-Lago raid was for this binder, saying that Trump had it the whole time. But then also, how many times during the classified documents case against Trump did Trump, his attorneys, and people on TV like Kash Patel and all these people that testified, how many times did they say that this material was already declassified? Like that was referenced so many times.
Right.
Yet Trump comes out and decides to issue another memorandum doing the same thing he already did, which makes me think, is somehow this binder actually missing? And this is a way to like, hey guys, we're in this big period of exposure and transparency and all these things. I'm going to make a big story out of declassifying these documents. Everybody's going to be waiting for them. And then lo and behold, it's gone. What happened to it? Or maybe they haven't. It's all going to come out. I don't know. But it's just weird to me that it's the same thing. And we know it's already been declassified because their own comments the last 4 years. So take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could just be, I don't know if I have a ton to add on that. It could just be like a narrative update. I know people hate when I say that, but some of these EOs with the third Trump term, if you want to call it that, it might just be reintroducing this stuff into the public mind because it was all being challenged at that time, right? That's the whole reason that Trump was forwarding those arguments that, hey, he was saying, I already declassified this stuff. The legal system, the corrupt legal system was challenging that. So now he's like, well, now it's double declassified and I'm president again. So, I mean, it's really simple, but that could be what he's doing.
I don't see how that's the case because it doesn't change anything from the first. It doesn't include any additional documents than from the first time he did it. You know what I mean? And so it's weird to me. And maybe it is just totally about the narrative of it, which it almost kills me to say that.
Yeah.
But it totally could be he just wants the narrative out there and they're going to have some big release of it. You know, it's going to be damning to a lot of the people. Go ahead.
What were you going to say? What's going to be damning, or it's going to be damning?
No, I said it's going to be damning to a lot of the people that, put forth this Russia collusion hoax.
Yeah, I don't know if I've said it on this show or I think I've just said it in my writing, but something that this deployment makes me think of, speaking of narrative, the word binders is, I think that there's a lot of sort of terms in the info war that I think of as templates. And that's one of them that is certainly surfacing more, resurfacing and surfacing recently. Binders is one. Well, I can give a few examples. The one that I first started thinking of this a few years ago was the word laptop. So just because now opinions vary on Hunter Biden's laptop, et cetera, right? We've talked that to death. But how many laptops from hell, and Trump has actually even used that specific terminology referencing several different laptops. Like it's referenced the Anthony Weiner laptop. He's used it to reference the Hunter Biden laptop. They've also used it to reference, not Trump, but Ghost would know. They've used it to reference a laptop out of Venezuela that was involved in a DOJ investigation there. He's brought that up on a bunch of shows. But laptop from hell is like it doesn't mean it's fake. I'm not saying that these things are fake or that there's no laptop, but I think that there is language coding at work in a lot of these deployments. Laptop is one of those things because the American people now like literally conflate the term laptop in these political stories with compromising material. And recently, so now we've got Crossfire Hurricane binders coming back up. And what did we have 2 weeks ago? What was the word that was taking over the zeitgeist in the wake of fake conning influencers and the Epstein narrative deployment? Binders, like the Epstein binders. We're going to release binders and binders and binders. It's like, it's so silly to me that it feels like, I don't know what the conclusion is, but it's not a coincidence to me when these things are resurfacing and these key terms around some of these big narratives are resurfacing in close proximity to each other. It's like Epstein's stuff is in a binder. Now we've got the Russia collusion stuff is in a binder. Crossfire Hurricane's in a binder. And I don't know. I think there's language coding going on. So,
well, not to just completely shit all over everything you just said, but I don't think they say the word binder in this new memorandum.
Damn it. But that CNN article did.
It was a good point. But the CNN article from 2 years ago did, yes. You're right.
Well, people talking about this memorandum are probably going to be using the word binder a lot, right? So
I'm sure you'll make sure that they do now. So.
Let's see if Trump and them use that term a lot.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Especially if there is some. It's just so weird to me that story came out in the first place, and there's been no resolution to it. There really wasn't even a follow up. They just say, "Hey, this binder's missing." A bunch of a couple of agencies ran with it, and then it's like, okay, whatever.
It's like, well, shit.
Nobody
Yeah.
cares.
Right.
Whoops. Yeah, it's just super weird. Anyway, so we'll see when that comes out. I don't think they have a timeline in here. I don't think so. Yeah, there's no timeline in this thing, so no idea when it'll actually surface. But should we talk about? I guess we could probably talk about the signal thing.
Yeah, it's a good tangential.
Yeah. Well, first of all, not to plug my show again, but I'm going to because I had a really good guest on yesterday. Gabrielle Cuchilla. She's a Pentagon correspondent, chief Pentagon correspondent for OAN, but she has a background in IT. Like she literally used to download signal onto White House employees' phones, and she went into the background of this has been around. It's a normal thing. Whatever they use, but the story itself on its face is just weird.
Yeah.
How did this journalist, like outside of the fact that they were using this to communicate these things, and the whole JD Vance angle, we can get into that too. That was a really weird thing. His like opposition to Trump in there, and then him coming out later and like, oh, we're totally aligned on everything. Just ignore the part where I was not aligned with him on like everything. But the fact that a journalist get in there just makes no sense. He had to have been added on purpose by somebody, and I'm not saying anybody in administration, but there's been some stuff surfacing about a staffer that maybe included him on this the app. I don't know, but I've talked this to death already. Why don't you go ahead and say whatever you want to say on it?
I mean, again, on a narrative level, this is how it all struck me. We talked about this in the first couple segments. It is so difficult / impossible it's very difficult to verify what's real and what's not. In this deployment, it seems like both sides are corroborating the messages, right? Because at first we're like, hey, are these real messages? Now we've got people involved in the messages confirming, yes, they're real. So I'll leave that alone.
Can I add something there too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, real quick. So they've confirmed the messages are real, but the messages that we've gotten and we've seen have all come from Goldberg. And so if we're going to be talking about this as the most transparent administration in history, why aren't they giving us the messages? Why aren't they the ones showing it? Why is it all coming from this hack journalist? Anyway,
well, that leads up to my main takeaway from this. No evidence for it at all. But when you say, I don't believe that, this guy got accidentally handed access to this group, that was my first thought. And I honestly, I have more faith in people like Ratcliffe, etc. Not necessarily everybody, but to me, this, especially with a lot of anons, a lot of people in our circle have been digging into Goldberg, and you don't have to dig far to find everything this guy's been involved with, right? And look at the timing. What we just talked about with the binders deployment, etc. Look at the timing of that name resurfacing with all of the things Trump is bringing up again and the narrative deployments that Goldberg was involved in, right? So to circle back to your question there, why is everything we're getting out of Goldberg? My thought on it is honestly that he took bait from career spooks. I'm not saying everybody involved in the conversation has to be like read in on what that op is, but the fact that you've got Hegseth joking about it, like, yeah, some battle plans, right? Like they're almost being flippant about it, the people that are in the conversation. And I think if they had any concerns about this, even from a reputational perspective, they wouldn't be acting that way. And the fact that to your point, the fact that all of the messages are coming from Goldberg, and the fact that they basically they baited the second deployment out by saying like, yeah, I don't see anything incriminating in there. So then he's like, well, how about this? And then Hegseth hits him with, well, I don't see any battle plans in there. It almost feels to me like this little rat, and he's like, oh my God, they don't even know. All these spooks have no idea that I'm in this signal chat. It just felt unbelievable to me. And it still feels unbelievable to me. I think that Goldberg and The Atlantic are the ones being opt here. I don't pretend to know why.
I can't think of any logical explanation that we would need or want to opt Goldberg and The Atlantic. Like, who gives a shit? Like, what would be the point of it?
Well, on a broad level, I think it's allowing a lot of people, including Trump, to tie, well, people in Trump's orbit, to tie Goldberg back into Russia collusion, etc. So one of the advantages I see of it, I'm not saying it's a huge one, is Trump has this huge public mandate. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. Trump himself was truthing out tonight, that infamous clip going around on CNN from either today or yesterday, where they're talking about how, you know, a record percentage of the American population feels the country's going in the right direction, right? So we're in a battle space right now, speaking of battle space, where even lefties, they're not endorsing Trump, but they are not standing opposed to the Trump agenda like they have in the past. And to me, this Goldberg deployment is the first major attempt at a scandal of the second Trump term. I know they say stuff every day, but in terms of like breaking, huge Trump scandal, this is the first one we've gotten in the new Trump administration, and it's kind of a joke. Like, I think it's landing like a joke. So I know it's not a big take, but I feel like this whole thing has been more embarrassing for The Atlantic and for Goldberg, and the fact that Goldberg's like dripping it out and everything. People in his own audience are calling him out for it. And I really could just see it being a bit of a humiliation thing. Like, hey, invite this hack, you know, then he'll the same guy who was involved in the Russia collusion hoax. Now we just gave him some more bait, and he's going to spin up some whole new narrative in 2025.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple things about what you said there. One, I don't think there's very many actual leftists in this country. There's people, America First, whatever, and then there's people that they are whatever the mainstream media allows them to be, you know, in socially acceptable terms, right? A lot of the people agree with this stuff already. They just don't say it because it's not socially acceptable. They think because the mainstream media tells them that what Trump does is bad, that they have to fall in line with that, even if they don't agree. Now people are less afraid to speak up. In terms of this, I just still don't. I don't think there's a logical explanation that at least satisfies my curiosity or reasoning to justify doing this. Because if you look at just the principle of what happened, that they were discussing this stuff on a commercial app, even though it's acceptable, right? It's permissible by CISA and all these things. It doesn't make it right. How do they not have a separate app that they can discuss this stuff with? There shouldn't be a reason they're having these discussions on something that they could even potentially add a journalist.
Yeah.
But then the fact that it happened, there's still a breach of their duty. Like these people have a certain responsibility being in this administration, and part of that is to protect classified information or sensitive information. Even if there was no actual classified information in that discussion, there is no way that you can justify to me that what's his name, Goldberg, should have been in on that. And there should be some form of accountability with this. If we're just looking at it face value, if the same thing happened under Biden and his administration, how would we as a movement and our side be reacting? Would we be like, oh, it's just a Signal app or whatever? Like, who cares? It's just a journalist in a Signal app. There wasn't any actual classified information in there. Or would we be kind of like, oh my gosh, somebody needs to be fired for this? Because I bet that's how most people would be responding. But instead, we're getting the whataboutism on Twitter from the people like Charlie Kirk, and that's who I talked about on my show today, saying, well, it's not as bad as this. Like, what's worse? You know, starting the Afghanistan war based on lies, or leaking stuff in a Signal chat to a journalist? They're both bad, and they both should be called out, and we should demand accountability for both of them. So that's one issue. I just don't think it's an op because it doesn't make sense. Trump doesn't need to opt the media anymore. I really don't believe it. I'm not saying that isn't what's happening. I don't see that being logical.
Yeah, well, another one that's probably a better theory is the Signal app itself, which I know Ratcliffe made some interesting comments about, right? He was talking about that this is all standard operating procedure, etc. But to take something from Chris's, I don't disagree with what you just said, by the way. I'm just saying, let's try to come up with if there was an op. Chris was responding to DC Drano here.
Zoom in.
So it gets messed up when I do that.
Further.
So DC Drano, you know what's really upsetting about Signalgate? The fact that the Trump admin felt they had to use it because other government comms are being spied on from within our government. The deep state got mad. They couldn't surveil Trump's comms, so they poisoned the well by sabotaging their Signal chat. So, by the way, I'm not defending DC Drano here. I'm going to rip him.
Well, I'm curious, though, where did he get that from? Because I haven't seen a single person come out and say that they were using Signal because they were being spied on by other government agencies. I don't think that's true.
I think that's bullshit. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point here. Okay. So, and I think this is Chris's point. But, Chris says, does Signal sponsor this message? Obviously, a reference to what we said earlier in the show about DC Drano. But if you're looking for an op, it could be that the op is about Signal. And it's interesting. I used the term counter signal like an hour ago. It's interesting that all of Con Inc., to your point, are defending Signal. Like, that's the thing they're defending. And then Chris posted this little thing from Trump, which I thought was really interesting.
Should Secretary Hegseth consider his position over the Signal?
Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this. Hegseth. How do you bring Hegseth into it? He had nothing to do. Look, it's all a witch hunt. Here we are talking about some of the greatest business deals ever made. The greatest companies in the world are moving into the United States, and you want to ask about whether or not Signal works. I don't know that Signal works. I think Signal could be defective, to be honest with you. And I think that's what we have to, because you use Signal and we use Signal and everybody uses Signal, but it could be a defective platform, and we're going to have to find that out.
So that's just one angle of it's interesting to look at what people are defending, what the worst people online are defending. And it seems like a lot of them are defending the Signal app itself. And Trump is not defending the Signal app. And now add that context into the fact that Trump is, for whatever it's worth, heavily defending Pete Hegseth. And Hegseth is at the front of this narrative joking about the messages in the Signal conversation. You can reverse engineer that to say, do they know that their Signal messages are being monitored? Another thing is, did Goldberg get access to that group by mistake, or, like you said, is that what they're doing? Like, this could all coincide with Signal and however he got access to those messages.
Yeah. Again, not even knowing or beginning to claim to know exactly what happened here, and that's kind of part of the problem and the lack of transparency again that we're not getting. Nobody's telling us what exactly went down to get him in this chat. They're just saying, oh, it was an accident. Like both Goldberg and the administration is saying the same thing, that it was just an accident. I don't think that's true. I would like to imagine that the people that Trump has selected to be in his administration would be better than to accidentally put in the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic into a group chat. It just doesn't make sense. Somebody added him intentionally, and then it comes down to whether it was the good guys or the bad guys. And I think it's just as likely. Like, we want to default to everything we see as it being a white hat operation. So something happens, it's like, oh, it's definitely white hats up in Goldberg. It's just as likely, based on the information we have, that somebody within Trump's administration, and some people on Twitter are pointing this out too. I don't even know the guy's name. I could probably try to find it, but it could be just as likely that there's a mole or somebody bad within Trump's administration. One of the underlings to, maybe it's the deputy chief of staff for Waltz or whatever, who put Goldberg in without them even knowing it. And if that's the case, it's a problem. But at the end of the day, my big issue with this stuff, because it is true that the Signal messaging, the stuff we saw in there, it wasn't that bad. That's fine. Like consequential ethics or whatever, the consequences of this weren't bad. But when you get down to what's the other one, deontological or whatever ethics, like is what's happening here good or bad? Not the consequences of it, but the act itself. The fact that these people were on Signal using Signal for these kind of conversations shouldn't have happened in the first place. There shouldn't have been a possibility of a journalist getting added. And that's the issue that needs to be addressed immediately. Alex Wong, that's who they're saying. Alex Wong is, let me look that up. Does that make sense though?
Yeah, it does make sense. I don't think that that would also coincide with if that is an op. You know, like ops can be provoked, right? They don't have to be seeded the whole way through, or the reaction to it could also be exactly what you're saying. It's like, okay, well, this happened, and now we're going to either find the leaker, which Trump, keep in mind, I think one of the reasons people default to things being a white hat op is almost what you started with. This is super fucking stupid. Like, it's retarded. So, you know, you've kind of got to pick a lane at some point. Not you, the general you has to pick a lane at some point. Do you think these people are retarded? Which is possible, like incompetent. Do you think there's a malicious actor here? Yeah. And then who is that malicious actor? Or do you think there's a malicious application here? And I thought it was interesting that Trump said, we got to look at the Signal app though, right? Like, and again, we talk all the time about how Trump, he does his weaves. Like he gives you a little bit, he takes it away. We're interpreting what we're getting out of his deployments. But just taking him at face value in that clip, he is heavily defending Pete Hegseth, basically defending the content of the conversation and not defending Signal, and going out of his way to not defend Signal because it wasn't asked about. Trump added that in that thing, and now it could be what you're saying too, or what Alex Wong is saying. Is it Signal or is it somebody gave unauthorized access to that? But as far as the people in that conversation are concerned, that shouldn't have been possible. So, right, like we've been in Signal chats and it's like a lot of people that have used Signal, that shouldn't be possible without you knowing that that's going on. So when you have to pick a lane, you either have to think that some or all of the literal military and intelligence operatives that are in that chat are idiots, or that there's something else going on here and that information was stolen and leaked.
Yeah.
Not given accidentally, but stolen.
And here's the thing too. One more thing. Everything you said there was great. And the fact that the Signal part of Trump and how he spoke about it, I think that's an interesting point. Another interesting thing though is, again, going back to the lack of transparency, I don't think if you're Goldberg and you actually have access to this and you're claiming that there's some information there that's classified or whatever, do you have the balls to actually put that information out in the public just because the administration is calling your bluff, essentially? Like, no, we didn't talk about anything classified. He puts out stuff that probably shouldn't have been in a group chat like that anyway. Whatever. I get it. That's like my whole point, is it shouldn't have been happening. But moving beyond that, is there more? Does he actually have other stuff? Was there other things being discussed? And the reason I'm not sure is because of what D&I Ratcliffe said during his testimony yesterday. The way he phrases this, what I'm about to show you guys, it's intentional and it's interesting because he makes a point to say my communications were entirely permissible, lawful, and did not include classified information. He did not say that the entire chat's communications were entirely permissible, lawful, and did not include classified info. And he stresses it twice. So take a listen to how he says this.
My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
Well, we will make that determination, because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee.
See how he said that though? Like the way he stresses my communications, and D&I Gabbard, she was doing the same thing. So is there more? Was there actual stuff being in there? Like, why would they stress it like that and not say generalize the whole chat? But anyway, that was kind of my final thoughts on that.
Ops on ops, matryoshka ops going on.
I don't know what that word means.
It's the Russian nesting dolls.
Matryoshka?
It's like the doll that you...
I know what the nesting dolls are.
I've got some of my...
Why didn't you just say Russian nesting dolls? Why'd you have to use a Russian word, bro?
To show people how much better I am than you.
How much more Russian you are than me?
Mm-hmm. I'm a Russian asset, man.
We all are at this point. We're Russian assets without getting the Russian money, and that's the most disappointing part.
I know.
We're doing this for them for free.
These days.
We're doing it for them for free. Anyway, we got This might be our most trusted.
One additional thing that we mentioned before the show on the Signal topic, that speaking of convergence, narrative convergence, look who it is. Lefty Lawfare Group. What?
I said, oh yeah, this is funny.
Yeah. Lefty Lawfare Group's suit against Trump admin over Signalgate assigned to anti-Trump Judge Boasberg. So this is American Oversight, I believe, is the party that is suing over the what are they saying? They're saying, so U.S. District Judge James Boasberg will handle the lawfare case, alleging that Pete Hegseth and other Trump officials violated record retention laws. It alleges the officials' use of an encrypted app allows messages about government business to be erased as a violation of the Federal Records Act. But the key here is Boasberg is in this op in a big way, right? He gets assigned to it. So again, this is part of the, I think, less lazy reason why people are saying, like, there's more to this than meets the eye, especially when we have on March 18th, Donald Trump freaking out in a good way about Boasberg, radical left lunatic of a judge, troublemaker and agitator. He ties Obama to him, obviously. So it's kind of interesting that exactly 1 week before Boasberg gets wrapped up in this whole Signalgate thing, or wraps himself up in this whole Signalgate thing, you know, it's like you've got the media portion of it, which is Goldberg. I agree with you that if there's any kind of white hat op going on, it's not all about getting the media. I think that you made good points on that. Like, we've got the media, they're done, right? But you can use the media to tie other actors together to get these things boosted. So it felt a little baity to me. And now that we've got like all the rats kind of coalescing around this piece of cheese, Trump was talking about this guy last week.
It is crazy. I mean, he's the guy, the judge from the Alien Entities Act, right? That whole thing, telling them to turn.
For anybody who
around.
doesn't know, yeah, exactly.
And so it is notable, to say the least, that he is going to be at the center of this too. I mean, how many major stories and legal challenges can they throw this same judge on?
Yeah.
Before they finally do something about these rogue judges, because
yeah.
that's got to happen.
And speaking of like tying a lot of tonight, we mentioned the red binders and all that. Boasberg, for anybody who's not aware, was not only the turn the planes around judge from a few weeks ago. He was involved heavily in the Russia collusion hoax and helping to push that through.
He was,
or at least he played a role.
He was a FISA court judge, so he was the head of the FISA court, appointed by Roberts, who was approving all of those. I think he approved. I mean, 4 of them were approved. I don't know if he approved every single one of them,
but isn't it interesting to tie that to, like, so he's a major player in that, and then on the narrative side of the deep state, who was another major player in that, Goldberg. Yeah. So now we've got a Boasberg-Goldberg deployment from years ago, and now this week we've got Goldberg and Boasberg teaming up again, right? They just so happen to be the same intrepid journalist and the same judge, just keep getting on these same Trump deployments.
Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if there's something in these the Russia collusion docs, the Crossfire Hurricane docs that come out, and it's gonna be like, shows corruption of Goldberg in the media, shows corruption of Boasberg and his stuff with the FISA courts, then also shows how these people were coordinating all of it on Signal apps.
Right. Who was giving them access, right? We've in the Q drops, they make mentions of all these different apps, right? They make mention of Signal. They make mention of Xbox Live chats, game logs, Microsoft game servers, like all these Google Drafts, Gmail Drafts was a way that we're told a lot of the deep state would communicate with each other, just not send the email, but save it in drafts, and then they'd open each other's accounts. So we're getting some disclosure of that, which is pretty interesting. So then again, you reroute that and go, why does it seem like the Trump team is baiting Goldberg out? Is it because Goldberg is starting to get the feeling that he just got caught in something, and they're like, "Come on, man, release what you got and tell us how you got it."
Yeah, I'm very curious. I mean, they're going to get to the bottom of this regardless. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. Still kind of playing 72-hour rule, and it's probably going to be longer. Yeah. I want more transparency. Going to keep pushing that because I don't think we're getting the transparency we're being told we're getting. But regardless of that, it's going to be interesting to watch this specific story play out, the signal in conjunction with all the other stuff going on. It's just there's just so much going on. Again, I want to point out we got a good crew watching tonight. Hit that thumbs up, guys. We really appreciate that. If you enjoyed this show, hit the thumbs up and make sure you give us a follow because there's a ton of great content on Badlands here on our channel pretty much all day long. So I'd encourage you to stick around and give us a follow if you're new. We're going to read one more sponsor, and then we will probably get to the boosts and the rants, unless there's anything else you can think of you want to talk about.
I was just going to say, with the last segment, I think it's clear that by the time we're done, there won't be any Bergs left.
The Jews.
Is that what you're talking about?
That's the thing that got Badlands canceled. No, I wasn't talking about it. Joe put the words in my mouth. I didn't say that.
But it's hard.
Just saying.
I haven't used these in a while. I miss him so much, man.
Like,
I love Trump. So glad he's back.
I miss him so much.
I fucking miss Joe Biden and his gaffes. There's nothing better.
All I have left is Zelensky. I have a soft spot for him. He's not the same. And for anybody who's new, this is ironic. Just don't be upset. The Ukrainian dwarf king is what I like to call him, and he's doing his best. He's like the bombastic comic relief character that comes onto the stage at scene transitions, and you're like, that was funny. But if he's there for too long, you don't want him there. But
Okay, please give us a credit.
he's done a good job. But Joe was, man, they just don't make him like him.
They just don't. You're absolutely right. Okay, gonna do the sponsor, and actually before I even do that, I'm gonna plug one more time before I forget. We should actually plug GART itself, huh?
Oh yeah,
probably. Coming up here on, don't want to get the dates wrong, May 1st through the 4th, we have in Plymouth, Massachusetts, GART 8. Should be a fun one. Get your tickets; they're available. This venue, we don't have room to add more seats, so we cannot guarantee that we're going to have single day tickets available for this one. If we sell out, we're sold out. We're not going to be able to add more tickets. So I would encourage you to get on it if you plan on coming. It's going to be a great time. If you haven't been to one of these, just ask anybody in the chat who has. Every single one of them will tell you what these conferences are like and what it's like to just get in the room with not just us speakers, but the community itself. We have such a good community of Badlanders. And speaking of that, I would encourage you to join a Badlanders group if you haven't. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/groups. They're all over the country. We have like 70 groups or something all over the country.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. But these people are getting together, monthly, and it's just getting together with like-minded people. It's so cool to see. But that's what I wanted to show people, that Nashville thing again. Just a reminder, go to hold on. Here we go. Nashville meetup, Saturday, April 5th, 2 to 4, RSVP.
Have you mapped
more
the
plants
exits?
to thrive.
You're going to be in a cellar. I just watched Inglourious Bastards 2 weeks ago and last week actually, and I don't know.
I didn't pick this
meetings
bar,
in cellars.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. That should be your first clue.
Am I being opt here?
Just make sure you order the whiskey in the right way.
It's Ty and JC who are behind this a little bit, so
He's a little feller, so
I can take him.
Yeah.
I can take him if I need to. All right, quick sponsor, then we'll do the boost and the rants if you want to get the boost ready. We are going to talk about 1775 coffee. Weak coffee is for the weak, and at Rumble, weak has never been part of the mission. No fillers, no fraud, and no settling for mediocrity, just like 1775 coffee. It's single origin, small farm, hand-picked, specialty-grade coffee that stands for quality, free speech, and calling out BS when it matters. Forget stale, mass-produced beans roasted just enough to hide the flaws. Dark roast hits like a Trump tariff. Medium roast keeps it bold without the bitterness. And Vitality Mushroom Blend, real energy and lasting focus with no synthetic garbage. For K-Cup pods, whole bean, or fresh ground coffee, go to 1775coffee.com. Use code STUDIO for 15% off and start your morning with coffee that stands for something. Oh, and every dollar spent enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 cash. Almost
Damn, I want a Cybertruck.
I know. So do I.
I've been seeing them around more and more. I saw one yesterday with a black stealth wrap on it. I was like, I like that.
I hate the design. Like, I know some people like it and are into it. I can't get into it. It doesn't matter how long you look at it. It's just still like, that is ugly as sin. Can't they make it even just moderately more attractive? Then I'd get one, but
I don't know. I feel like it hits different in person.
Yeah, they're bigger.
Same way.
They're bigger.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what she said. Damn, nice.
All right.
That's so gay. Boost it up.
We are boosted. Patriot Christologist sent $5 over. The comments about JD Vance have been intriguing, as have been Trump saying JD's not his successor, and the fact that he looks, speaks, and acts very similar to Con Inc. characters. Is it a stretch to say he might be a rug for Con Inc. followers? I didn't hear Trump say he's not his successor. Did you see that? Did Trump say that?
I don't know. Probably.
I don't remember that. But
if
hey,
somebody said it on the internet, if somebody gave us $5 to say it, it has to be true.
Yep. That's it. Plymouth Patriot, $10. Hey, John and BB, been listening to John since the beginning. I love that BB adds a nice perspective from Massachusetts. Looking forward to good times at Card 8 in May in America's hometown.
That's why BB's here. The only reason is we wanted a perspective of somebody from Massachusetts.
Exactly.
There's no other reason.
Well, the Bruins are not in good shape. Not in good shape at all. We gave that money to Jeremy Swayman, and he's a little bitch, it turns out.
Didn't they trade like all their players too?
Yeah, but like we can't even rebuild. We've got nothing. We committed half our payroll to a third line center, and Jeremy Swayman, the goalie, who tried to fight another goalie the other night, and then his own teammates wouldn't back him up.
I saw that. When was the last time you guys won a Stanley Cup?
2011. We should have had a couple more.
So I don't think you get to talk because I'm a Minnesota sports fan, and at least
What's it like not having real sports in your own state? I've always wondered about that.
We got real sports. They're just not at the highest level.
Yeah. Well, the Celtics are going to win another title. Red Sox are back. Patriots are back.
Who cares about the NBA? Who cares about the NBA? The Patriots are not back.
I'll take it if it's a championship. We add it to the scoreboard, even though none of us like it.
It doesn't count. Patriots are not back, by the way. How are they back?
I don't know. Drake makes Stephon Diggs. Come on, we got it. He's fine. His knee will be fine, man. Don't worry about it.
I've had Stephon Diggs. He's the locker room cancer, bro.
Yeah, we could use a little locker room cancer to motivate everybody.
But you can get rid of it with fenbendazole, guys.
True. Lionheart sent $50 over. Hey guys, what a time to be alive. Keep up the great work. Love you guys. God bless. Thank you, Lionheart. Frequent supporter. And Joe Biden's football, $10. Do you have a loved one and panic over the Chomps meat stick recall psyop? Well, do not recall the Kennedys. Do not recall sheet metal. Do not recall any news articles chomping about very real elections affecting our very real government.
Interesting. Good to see. I haven't seen him in a while. Was he at the Irvine conference that we had?
He was at the Irvine conference.
I know I got those footballs somewhere. I don't let my kid play with them because he somehow ruins every football we play with, but got him somewhere.
That's a bad kid.
He's a great kid. You shut your mouth.
My son is not yet ready to challenge him in Nerf, but I'll have him ready.
He's a Nerf pro. He's doing wrestling again, though. He's been doing it for a couple months. We went to wrestling. Tonight he got paired up with this kid that's like 2 grades older than him, twice his size. And my boy was working him a little bit. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool to see.
So the move there is single leg, and you got to get the chest on the knee.
It's wrestling, not whatever.
No, I mean for the takedown.
No, I mean the way they do that. It's like they work on one move for one entire class.
Yeah,
and so it's just like I don't know if it's a full Nelson or half Nelson. You put your arm under their arm behind their neck and then roll them over. And they just did that for an hour, 45 minutes. But he was doing good. Anyway, totally off topic.
Start them young with a pile of trash neck. Don't make them wait till they're 30.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why.
Thank you, Counterinsurgent, for all the gifted subs, by the way. It doesn't track that for us, but we see them when they come through, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Counterinsurgent. That's awesome. And then right off the rip here, we got Micro Toolmaker with 2. And I know you pointed these out earlier, but BB and John, brilliant combo. Where we go one, we go all. Thank you. And then doubling this in Chris's honor, where we go one, we go all. Really appreciate you, man. Your support. It really means a lot because the majority of our funding, we don't get it from the big dogs, the YouTube money. We get it from you guys directly. All of our revenue comes from you guys with the rants or supporting our sponsors or you name it. So really
we applied to be in Con Inc. and they just told us we couldn't be in. So, like, I try to grow my hair out, go door to door, and get people registered to vote. And
Have you tried wearing a
nobody paid
beanie?
me. Yeah, I haven't tried that yet.
Maybe that'll
That
do
is
it.
the evolution, though.
Also, if you recede your hairline a little bit to make your forehead much bigger, that helps.
Right.
I've heard.
That's true.
Or if your father was a spy and you apply to the CIA and they turn you down, that helps get you.
I'm a little disturbed, though, that Micro seems to be implying that Chris is worth 50% of the show and each of us are worth 25%.
Well, the joke's on everybody because I don't think Chris gets the rants from this show, does he?
I don't know.
Well,
I
we
figured
probably
he
should
did
give.
because he was.
We
Yeah,
probably should give it to him.
Give it to him.
We'll give it to him.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tomevs, love it here. Always more to the story. Thank you, Tomevs. Keith O'Higgins, nice to see you, man. If elections are now no longer gay, do we need to set up interventions and counseling sessions and meetings like Alcohol Anonymous for the libtards? Maybe call it gay,
Met Keith O'Higgins. He's exactly the guy you would think would write that.
Yep. Where are we at? Valseco, nice to see you, man. If we wouldn't have voted the hardest ever and it was a standard non-Trump election turnout, but the narrative was there, would Trump have won? Are the elections that fake? If we wouldn't have voted the hardest ever and it was a standard non-Trump election turnout, but the narrative was there, would Trump have won? I don't know if I like that
Chris
phrasing.
was talking about. It's the Too Big to Rig was about the story. And I think it makes sense. As what you said about the battle space Trump was in holds.
Yeah.
But I also think he genuinely did want people participating in it because then you've got this mass participation in the story of Trump winning the election.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. 1027 JS, fellow North Dakotan, thank you so much. Says, thanks, John, BB, and Chris. Thank you. I want to see where we're at for thumbs up, by the way. Okay. So right now we have 25,000 people watching, and we have just over 2,000 thumbs up.
There should be 25,000 thumbs up.
I mean, I think that this show was that good. I agree with you.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I know not everybody's going to thumbs up. Totally get it.
Ash
But
and
it's not that
CanCon
difficult.
thumbed us down, I'm convinced.
18 times too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that difficult, guys. If you're able to, if you have a thumb, hit it where the thing is positive affirmation button. Hit that thing.
Right.
And you can do it on the TV. You can do it from your computer, whatever it is. Just quick little thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. Want to see if we can get up there on the leaderboard. Get to like a number 1 spot on a Wednesday would be pretty cool. Probably impossible, but see how high we can get. John in Connecticut. The fraud begins with the 14th Amendment. You can't support the reconstructed government by voting without committing the crime of rebelling against the original constitutional government. I like that point. Very interesting point. Lucy the dog. President Trump sounds tired. He did sound tired.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was weird. CJ Hurley, 1961. Election fraud is like the women in her red dress.
Like from The Matrix?
I'm assuming that's what that meant.
Hmm.
Election fraud is like super hot or something. Is that...
I don't know.
Jody Ivron, $50. Thank you. If I could take back all the money I gave to Win Red, knowing what I know now, I would give it all to you at Badlands. Thank you, John, Chris, and BB. Well, that's very nice of you to say.
Thank you, Jody.
Have you asked for it back? So maybe
Right.
it'll work. Maybe
They
they'll
might
give it to
send it to us. Yeah.
Valseco 16. I need CP response to my rant before he goes. It was for him. We'll send it to him, man. I'll Do you want to take a screenshot of that and send it over?
Sure.
And we'll get you an answer on Saturday. You might have to remind us. But Lucy the dog. The Dems had many targeted remarks ready to go for the hearing. The leaker from Walt's office is probably a mole. Very well could be. Wide Awake Patriot 146. John, 100% we need to fix elections across the country for all of President Trump's improvements to remain after he's out of office. Great show, guys. Blessings to you both. Thank you. Phil Scarborough, shout out to Mississippi Badlanders. I read this earlier. Would love to connect and organize a meetup. phsjr@protonmail.com. I can vouch for this guy. He's legit. So if you're in Mississippi, do it up. Eternal Freedom. The segment on voting was so cathartic, BB. Cool.
Well, that's thanks to Chris, I think, mostly.
Wedged Gravy. At this point, we need to just burn the whole system down and reset the country to the original constitution, a federal government that regulates trade and provides for the common defense. And when he says burn the whole system down, I'm assuming he means metaphorically.
Yes.
But
I'd also say, I said this on some recent shows. I I don't necessarily love the podcast, but two fascinating and signal-full recent podcasts were on that All In show with Chamath, etc., with Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent, separate interviews. And man, like, I know it's the financial stuff, but that's at the heart of the system. And Scott Bessent is just telling you what they're doing. And it's pretty interesting in terms of unloading that system, dismantling the system.
Somebody in the chat asked, is the leaderboard order determined by total live viewers or total thumbs up number? It's total thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Viewership has nothing to do with it. It's all thumbs up. So that's why we ask, because we want to get up on the leaderboard to grow our community, find new audience. It's a great way to get us some more exposure. So we appreciate it. Keith Higgins, if Trump is king, is Barron a prince and a baron? Does Eric Prince have dual sovereignty? You asked the important questions, Keith. No, don't go to bed. Keep giving us $2 rants. Cam Cooksey for $3. Just because you're not smart enough to know the solution doesn't mean you have to be too dumb to know the problem. Cam Cooksey, Michael Scott. It's great use of a Michael Scott quote. Love it. And also, I guess might as well say it. Spoke with Cam Cooksey, started a show. I think he's doing one tomorrow before SITREP, but Cam Cooksey is going to be moving it to Badlands soon. He's going to be on the network very soon, next couple weeks. So give him some love in the chat. As long as he doesn't get super gay and try opping us like everybody else.
True.
We'll see. But for now, he's got the green light.
The ops have all blended together at this point, perhaps literally.
Definitely literally. That's what's so funny about it.
Yep, we see.
All the same people are now working together. Keith O'Higgins.
We see.
I just read that one. RFrat017. Hey, brothers, I'm trying to set up for most of us to go to the Green Dragon on Friday after the welcome party. Hope you guys will make it happen. What's the Green Dragon?
Green Dragon. I haven't even been there, and I was born in Plymouth County, grew up there.
You're trying to set up stuff outside of GART? You need to run this by Mrs. Bright.
Right.
I disavow immediately.
Yep.
Run it by Mrs. Bright first.
But if it works out, maybe.
But now that our disclaimer's out there.
They call it Quiet City Boston, and I'm not sure how late it's going to be open, but we can try to keep it open.
I disavow. This is all BB and our Frato 17. Wedge Gravy removes the redactions except for the cover letter. EOD class, maybe? Again, it's the same cover letter that was mentioned in the first one. And it's a cover letter that they sent asking for specific redactions. So nothing changes from the original declassification. It's just super weird. Keith Higgins, will Crossfire Hurricane crossover to the recently underreported arrest of FBI agent Jonathan Buma at airport? Could he be a linchpin on leaks and real Huber investigation and Durham report validation? Could be. Got to see that at some point, right? I would think so. That's a great point. Great question. I got to dig into that a little more. Valseco, John, I'd say the op is silent. This is probably how everything is leaked.
Could be.
Lucy the dog, having Goldberg in a chat will draw out a mole. I think also the Dems knew about it.
Well, that's what's interesting about Boasberg getting involved on the legal side when he also got involved the last time Goldberg deployed a narrative that ended up with legal ramifications.
Yeah. G. Henry messaging. Meeting memo sent to government groups selected contacts. However, one of the contacts is corrupted with a wrong email address. During the meeting, it will appear GovWorker is present. It's interesting. Blue 7i. How do you say it? Matryoshka dolls?
Matryoshka.
Matryoshka dolls.
You have such little Russian culture. How do you expect to be accepted in the motherland when all of this is over?
Because of my awesomeness or something? I don't know. Don't need to be Russian to go to Russia. I'll get an H-1B passport in Russia. That's what I'll do. H-1B visa. They'll accept me immediately. Wedge Gravy, favorite judge story today. 1/3 of DC judges are foreign born and some have no legal background. No. Is that real? Wedge Gravy, if that's real, take me on Twitter with that. Curious.
I did see people saying that.
But people say lots of things and it doesn't just make it true.
I don't
Have
know.
we learned nothing?
We did literally said earlier tonight it does.
Well, if they give $5 to do it, yes.
Right. Yeah, it's true. That was only $2.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Not true. Doesn't pass the threshold.
Miss Ria Freedom Fighter, what do you think about impeaching judges? I'm for it, but I think there's got to be an even better way than that, because that's still relying on Congress, who are only in their position of power because they benefited from a fraudulent election system. So I have
They also
little faith
did
in
butt
them.
stuff. They did a lot of butt stuff. You can't just have a fraudulent election to
What-
get
what-
in the club.
You're talking about the Daily Wire or what? Or TPUSA?
Oh yeah, I mean for sure.
I'm confused where the
why
butt
isn't
stuff
this
comes
working?
in, but whatever.
Share my screen for a sec, because it looks like this was reported actually by the Federalist.
Hmm.
A third of all DC district judges were not born in the United States.
That's insane. Isn't that like how many judges are in the DC District Court?
15. But
Of all
still.
the judges, yeah, I mean that's a very little amount, but I mean that's a high
very
percentage. That's weird. I wonder how much it is across the entire United States.
Right.
That is pretty insane. You should send me a
Mika.
link. Send me that link in Telegram if you would.
No, I'm not. Goldberg's in there, man. Scurrying around.
No, he's in Signal.
Oh, right.
Send it to me on WhatsApp. The Chinese can
Okay.
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
fine.
good with the Chinese. I'm writing Chinese propaganda recently too. I've kind of transitioned from Russia.
I can't remember. It might be Israel who's behind the WhatsApp stuff, the Trojan thing that Gabrielle was talking about.
Lots
I don't
of
remember.
nerds.
Keith O'Higgins, I think this psyop about communication backdoors and app insecurity and privacy is all directed by big carrier pigeon. Very well could be. Cam Cooksey, Jackie made this form, badlandsmedia.tv/groups. That's the one. If you want to join a Badlanders group, you go to, and somebody will email you the contact info, or somebody will be in touch with you about the group in your area. If there isn't one, they will give you all the tools necessary to start one.
You will also be forced to swear the oath to Badlands.
Oh, stop it. It's not true. Melindy, for the newcomers, today's episode of Breaking History was an excellent lesson on the Balkans area. Yeah, Breaking History does a great job with their show.
Yeah.
You have just a lot of good shows on
The
Badlands.
Balkans are crazy.
Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, is my daily show. I don't think I have a guest lined up for tomorrow, but I do have a guest lined up for Friday. For those of you who don't know, her name is Dr. Carol Swain. I have Dr. Carol Swain coming on Friday to talk about some things. So I'd encourage you to tune into that. Have had a lot of good guests lately. Topaz Skylark. I can always tell when BB is tired or getting tired. He starts rocking himself. Aw. But on my TV, I watch you on BB's forehead. Gets big, then normal, then big, then normal. Love you. But like you're going back and forth and your forehead's getting big.
Oh, I get it. I understand.
That's awesome.
Also, now I'm rocking when I'm standing because I'm used to holding the baby at 3 a.m. So you start doing that, just like
That's really
rocking
funny.
back and forth while you're talking to your wife. You're both just like rocking back and forth.
That's weird. I want to find the clip in the Liberty Den where we talked about you and your rocking. This is so funny. Just gotta find the
I'm
clip.
probably the only person who does it here, aren't I? I didn't know about this affliction
Okay.
until recently.
Let me read this last rant and then we'll.
It's funny the things your wife knows about you that you're just like, why did she ever say that?
But the
I don't
rocking
know.
or what?
Yeah. She's like, yeah, you do that all the time. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, we've talked about it for a while now. Like it's
I know, but
well
I
known.
didn't know that years ago. These are
Yeah.
all new revelations.
Well, it clearly wasn't like a red flag to the point. It wasn't a deal breaker for her.
Apparently,
So
yeah.
why does
Well,
it
she's
matter?
Canadian though, so she was just trying to get in.
Tweak626 for $10. Thank you. I wrote this article, Pure Blood Media, The Sovereign People, How the Supreme Court Proves Codes and Statutes Ain't Our Chains. I will check that out. I appreciate you sending that over. I'll save that.
Thanks, Tweak.
Yeah. And then maybe this can just... do you have an outro video? Otherwise, we can just play this part
No,
where we
that's
show...
fine.
Okay. Well, then...
Have a better haircut at least.
marginally. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll play this, and then I'll sign it off when it's over. So hit that thumbs up. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, on the Daily Herald and all our other shows, whatever. Liberty Den Friday. This is the next time. Are you ever gonna come back on a Liberty Den, by the way?
Yeah, we're starting to. It's been chaotic, but
A
the
newborn
boys getting
chaotic?
onto
I
more
don't know,
of a-
bro.
I've probably gotten like 6 hours of sleep in 3 days, but tomorrow morning, this morning I get to sleep, so I'm
Good for you.
planning to.
Good for you. Cool. Okay. Well, catch y'all later.
Turning
Some rockets.
West products
real networks should or should not offer or distribute.
Oh no.
In the
Like he just keeps repeating it over. The deposition itself.
It's hard to see, but you got to look at Bernie right here. Watch him. He starts rocking in a second.
Very Gatesian. Yeah.
Is he rocking in a does his chair move back and forth though? Is it just kind of that thing, or is he
No,
like?
it's him. You haven't noticed that? He does it on Story Hour too. It's just like his autism coming through.
I mean, he also could have just like a rickety old chair. I don't know, but
no, we talked about this on air before.
He has confessed to doing it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody in the chat also said that Bill Gates, I think they were talking